The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you. Effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies.
That was President Trump today on the Supreme Court's ruling. It's a curious ruling. The president can still do trade embargoes against entire nations. The rule that tariffs are a tax, Congress has the power over, but Congress gave the president their power to still do tariffs under other existing U.S. laws that they wrote. Let's welcome to the show former presidential candidate and attorney Larry Elder. Larry, it's always great to have you on. What do you make of this? Because the president is going with what Justice Brett Kavanaugh said in his dissent, that there's still a wide range of U.S. tariff powers. Let's show them. The Trade Act of 1962, also of 1974, and the Tariff Act of 1930. What do you think?
Let me just say first, Liz, on a side note, 3 of the Republican justices ruled against President Trump, 2 of whom he appointed. So maybe, just maybe, it'll take some of the steam away from the Democrats who want to pack the courts because they believe that he is getting the Supreme Court to do whatever he wants them to do. But you're right, there are other ways of doing this. And when Joe Biden had his student loan program struck down, he just used a different statute and reintroduced pretty much the same plan. Well, Trump has all sorts of various ways of implementing tariffs through various statutes, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So it's not going to go away. It is going to be a mess, though, to determine whether they're going to be refunds, who gets them, and over what period of time.
Biden did go ahead after the Supreme Court ruled against the student loan bailouts, against the vaccine OSHA mandate, and also against an EPA ruling. Biden just kept plowing forward. You know, the president and vice president, J.D. Vance, say tariffs are needed to protect U.S. jobs, industries, and the U.S. supply chain. We'd like to get your reaction, Larry, to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just moments ago talking to Will Cain. Watch this.
To be clear, today was at a loss for the American people because by taking away President Trump's instantaneous leverage using the IEPA authority, the American people have suffered a significant setback. Think to this time last year when President Trump put on the fentanyl tariffs against Mexico, Canada, China for the precursor chemicals, and then we saw a rapid decline in fentanyl deaths. If that's not an emergency authority, what was? On October 8th, when the Chinese government said that they were going to put a worldwide export control on any product that had 0.01% Chinese rare earths in it, 24 hours later, President Trump said that he would impose a 100% tariff on China if they did it. They immediately came to the negotiating table, and we were able to negotiate a 1-year extension. So in terms of the direction of travel, national security, how we will get there with these deals, nothing, revenue, nothing has changed. But what has changed, the Supreme Court has taken away the president's leverage, but in a way, they have made the leverage that he has more draconian because they agreed he does have the right to a full embargo. I think that everyone is going to honor their deal.
You know, Larry, an interesting point here. What is an emergency under the 1977 law? Isn't fentanyl an emergency? Who gets to define what's an emergency?
Well, that's a great point. And essentially what the Secretary of Treasury is saying is that these tariffs weren't just a tax. They were an instrument of foreign policy. And now you've removed that away from the president. You know, we had all these tariffs against us following the Second World War against all these European countries that were flat on their backs because of the war. And that's been over a long time ago. So a lot of these tariffs against us were completely, totally unfair. And President Trump used the instrument of that Emergency Act to recalibrate some of these deals. And so I think that Bessett is right. The American people are going to be hurt by this. But President Trump, again, has other arrows in his quiver, and he should be able to figure out how to do this, although it's going to take a time. The thing that he did was in one fell swoop, he got the world's attention. And I think that in the long run, he did our economy a favor.
Thank you so much, Larry Elder. Always a pleasure to have you on, sir. Come back soon.